All right, 7th graders, we have 2 lessons coming back to back. That's because they're very closely intertwined with one another. The first one is the difference between the mood and the schema of an argument. And then the next one, we're going to be talking about the form of the argument. So beginning here with mood and schema. We've talked about these 2 terms in class. They're very closely related with one another. Let's start with the schema of an argument. The schema of an argument is the standard form of a syllogism. When you use terms that are abbreviations, in the standard abbreviations, M, S, and P. Remember, M stands for middle term, S stands for the subject of the conclusion, and P stands for the predicate of the conclusion. Okay? Hopefully those are all kind of becoming, you're becoming familiar with those concepts right now. Remember that the major term is going to have the predicate in the premise, and the minor term is going to have the subject in the premise. So the first line of your argument, the first line of your syllogism should be the major premise, which has the predicate of the conclusion. The second line will be the minor premise, which has the subject of the conclusion. Both those 2 premises should have the middle terms in there as well. If we just use that kind of mathematical structure, we don't replace the M with any other term. We don't replace the S or the P with other terms as well too. We call this the schema of an argument. So a schema could look like something like all M's are P's, all S's are M's, therefore all S's are P's. That would be the schema of an argument. But you could zero into each of these premises, and you can notice that all of these, in the case that I just gave you, was all, and all. The first 2 premises and the conclusion were all statements, which if you remember back to our square of oppositions, we have 4 different types of statements that can be having a relation with each other. The first one is all SRP. The second one is no SRP. The third one is some SRP. And the final one is some SR not P. We call those A, E, I, and O statements. When you put those together, you realize that, as I'm working through a syllogism, my various premises, and indeed even my conclusion, might be an A, E, I, or O statement. The combination of those statements is what we call the mood of the syllogism. Okay, so a schema will be the whole structure of it. We think of it, all the different terms in their various different places. The mood can be abbreviated with 3 letters, and that can give you all the information that you need. We could say it's an AAA statement or an AAA syllogism, which would be the exact type one that I just gave you, right? All MRPs, all SRMs, therefore all SRPs. But it could also be an AIE statement, right? A would be all MRPs. E would be no S's are M's. That A, E, I think I said I. And then I would be some S's are P's, right? We'd have to figure out whether or not that actually logically follows. In this situation, just thinking about it from memory, which is tricky to do sometimes with these, I believe that it's not a valid way of constructing a syllogism. But we have the basic structure of how to work through that already. Hold on to this idea, because there's one other important framework principle to building a syllogism, which is where we put the M's and the P's and the S's in those first 2 premises. Remember that the conclusion will always be S in the subject role and P in the predicate role. We like it when the first 2 premises have the predicate in the predicate position and the subject in the subject position. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, though, as we're going to see in the next section. So, just to overview, the mood of a syllogism is the broadest structure of it when it's put in its correct format and when it's abbreviated with S, M, and P, right? I'm sorry, I said that was the mood. That's the schema. The mood is just referring to which types of arguments, or which types of statements, I should say, from the square of contradictions are being used in the schema. And so we could say that the The mood is an A-E-A syllogism. We could not summarize the schema like that. We would have to give the whole argument in order to do so. Hopefully that makes sense. If you keep these two ideas together, it's easier to also distinguish them where you need to. Again, this is lesson 21. Feel free to reference back to it for additional clarification on this.